All right, so today we're talking about Nebula. This is sort of our monthly introduction to Nebula, where we go through some of the key features of Nebula, sort of explain what it is for those of you that are new to Zyxel, and answer any questions you may have. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Nebula was what we call the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. So Nebula got started and launched all the way back in 2016. So back in 2016, when it came to cloud management of your networks, there weren't a lot of players out there, and those who were there were primarily focused on the enterprise space, or were focused on very specific product lines. For instance, there was a couple different companies that were only doing wireless access points. Cisco's Meraki is probably the most famous, even back then as far as cloud managed solution. But they were aimed at the enterprise space. Meraki Go didn't exist at that time. So we took a look at what Meraki was offering and said, that would be really beneficial for our VARs that are, for the most part, targeting the SMB space. So we got together, put it together, and launched it in 2016. We call it full stack because it applied to our security products, our switches, and our access points. We have over 61 products currently supported. I think we're up to over 80 now. Slide hasn't been updated in a while. But basically, the idea behind Nebula is it makes it easy for you to deploy and manage your customers' networks. Basically, everything is going to be managed through a single pane of glass. You simply log into nebula.zyxel.com, and all of your customers and their networks are right there for you. And you're saying, well, why would I want cloud management? And the idea behind cloud management is to make your life easier. Up on the screen here, these are all of the things that you normally have to do when you're deploying a new network from scratch. And with cloud networking, specifically our Nebula product here, the idea is to take what's there and make it easier for you or cheaper for you, reducing the amount of work you need to do, simplifying your processes, saving you both time and money. So now we'll go through some of the key features here of Nebula. So to begin with, Nebula gets you up and running in just a few minutes. You simply log into that Nebula site. Say you want to create a new customer. We've got a number of wizards there. We can help walk you through that process. And in just a few minutes, you should have all the basic settings configured to have a network up and providing access to the internet. Now, the way Nebula works, you can start configuring your customer's network before you've even finalized which hardware you're going to buy for them. And then once you do finalize the hardware, you can start configuring that hardware specifically before the product gets sent to the customer's location. So the way this works is with Nebula, you've got some general broad settings, so you can configure those at any time. Once you do get the hardware in hand, we have QR codes either on the box or the belly of the product that you simply scan in and then assign that device to your customer and to the site you're going to deploy it at. Once you've done that, you can start configuring the device-specific settings for that product. And then by the time this device gets sent out to your customer's location and plugged in, it will simply reach out to the cloud, see you want to manage it in the cloud, and it will go ahead and download the configuration you've already set up. So unlike some of the other cloud solutions out there, there is nothing that you generally need to configure on the device itself. Everything is done through the cloud. So you don't have to log into the device and put it into cloud mode. It will see you want to manage it in the cloud, and it will automatically put itself in the cloud mode. So to use our cloud platform, there's nothing else you need. There's no additional hardware you need to buy, no CNA devices, no cloud keys. There's no virtual machines that need to be set up or software that needs to be run everywhere. Everything is done through our website, nebula.zyxel.com. So once you've got things plugged in, anywhere you have access to the internet and a web browser, you have access to your customers and their networks, making it really easy no matter where you are to keep an eye on what's going on your customers' networks. When it comes to providing guest access, whether we're talking about something like a coffee shop where it's primarily going to be used as a hotspot, or whether we're just talking about access to vendors or customers who may be visiting your customer's site, it's really easy to do guest access. We have captive portal functionality built into our security gateways. It is also built into our standalone access point. So if you have a customer who already has a gateway, Um, you can still deploy a guest access network just by using our access points. So they have built-in captive portal feature. They also have a feature called layer 2 isolation, which allows you, even on networks that do not have VLAN tagging on the switches and gateway, to be able to isolate those customers onto their own network, where they will not be able to directly access any other resources on the network except the internet. Our captive portal is really easy to set up and use, and gives you a lot of options as far as how those customers or end users get out onto the network. We can have them agree to a simple terms of service page. We can have them log in with a username and password. We can have them self-register. We can even have them log in using Facebook. And on the wireless side of things in general, we have all the features you would expect of a business class access point product. So we have our smart mesh functionality, so you can easily deploy networks and extend wireless coverage to areas where you may not have the ability to put a wired backhaul. We also have the ability for the access points to automatically put themselves into mesh mode. Should something happen to the wired connection going to them. So even if somebody accidentally unplugs the AP, provided it's got power, it can still act as a mesh and provide coverage to users in that area until that hard line gets repaired or replaced. We support WPA2 and WPA3 enterprise security, and we support all the industry standards for fast roaming, 802.11k, V, and R. On the switch side of things, Nebula provides access to our intelligent PoE. So this is something that sort of goes against the standard, overrides the standard way of doing PoE, to be able to free up more PoE budget for additional devices. So with this, you can normally put more devices onto one switch than you normally could. We have all your security features you expect to find on a switch, VLAN configuration, 802.1x authentication, loop guard, DHCP server guard, IGMP snooping, etc., and the ability to virtually stack switches, allowing you to configure ports across multiple switches at the same time. So with Nebula, again, everything is done over the air. You do not need to access the devices locally. In fact, if you are using Nebula and they put themselves in Nebula mode, there is nothing really you can configure on the devices directly. Everything is done through the cloud. So you just log into the Nebula website, make your changes, and within a few minutes, those changes will be automatically pushed out. That also includes firmware updates. Firmware updates are all done through the cloud itself. On the security side of things, we make VPNs easy for you. So you can easily establish L2TP or site-to-site VPN connections. For site-to-site VPN, assuming all the sites are managed in Nebula, you simply go into Nebula, choose the sites you want to link together, choose the topology you want to use, and we handle everything else for you. For those remote users using L2TP, we have the ability to email out scripts that can automatically configure Windows, Mac OS, and iOS devices to connect back to the security gateway. So Nebula was designed even all the way back in 2016, specifically with the idea that you have a lot of different customers, and those customers may have different sites. So this is something that sets us apart from some of the other SMB cloud solutions out there, where they're really set up and designed for one cloud instance for each customer you have. So if you want to manage multiple customers, you need multiple accounts, log in and out to be able to access them. With Nebula, you log in with your one username, your one password there, all of your customers are there, all of their sites are there, and we make it really easy to jump between customers and jump between sites. So when you log in, you choose your customer, it will give you a list of all of their sites. Simply choose the site you'd like to manage, and it will take you into the main dashboard here. There's a number of different widgets up there on the screen, so you can choose which widgets are available. The ones that are available will depend, how much of your network is Nebula. So you can see things here like how many devices are currently online, what your PoE utilization is versus your budget, how many users are on your wireless networks, which users are using up your bandwidth, which applications are using your bandwidth on that network. Then when it comes to navigating through this, if you see up here at the top, there are two drop-down menus. The first drop-down menu is a list of the customers you have access to. We call those organizations in Nebula, so each customer will be their own organization. Choose the organization you want to manage, and then it will populate the second drop down here with a list of all of their sites. Choose the site, and it will automatically take you over directly to the dashboard for that site. And then all your logs and all your configuration is done through a menu here on the left-hand side of the screen. If you're looking for certain pieces of hardware, curious where they're at, we've got a search functionality that can search through all the sites and all the orgs you have access to find individual pieces of hardware. So we have a screen that shows you all of your connected devices. So by default, it shows you all of your wired and wireless users. And then you can choose to filter that to just wireless or just wired users. And depending on what you're looking at, you will get different options for the data you can see over here. So for instance, if you choose to look at all your wireless users, it will tell you all sorts of things about the clients that are connected, whether they're currently connected or not. If they're not currently connected, when was the last time that device was connected to the network? What SSID it's on? What type of security is it using? What channel is it using? What's the current signal strength at the access point for that client? The MAC address, the brand and model of Wi-Fi chip that device is using, and all sorts of other information that you can use to help troubleshoot situations on your network. On the switch side of things here, when you pull up one of your switches, you get access to this view here. As you can see here, we have Google Maps integration. You can also load in your own floor plan and then arrange the devices that are on your network where they are on that floor plan. So it's a tool, so if somebody has to go on site for some reason, they can log into Nebula and figure out where the device is that they're looking for in the building. We show you a view of all of the ports on that switch, let you know easily just by looking at them which ports are currently in use, what speed those connections are, and whether or not those ports are providing PoE power or not. And then we have the ability here to provide some troubleshooting features, such as being able to ping from the switch outwards, power cycling the device, and checking out traffic that's been passed through the device over a certain period of time. For port configuration, you simply choose the ports you want to configure, and then pull up this one screen here, allowing you to set all of these different features across those ports simultaneously. So what I've been talking about up to this point is Nebula has been the features that are available for free. So again, this is something else that sets us apart from some of the other SMB cloud managed solutions, is that Nebula itself is free. It is not capped at a certain number of devices. It's not, we give you 6 devices and then you have to pay for more. It's an unlimited number of sites, an unlimited number of customers, and an unlimited number of devices can be managed using the Nebula cloud for free. Now, we do offer some optional licenses which unlock additional features, and we'll talk a little bit about that coming up here in a little bit. So when it comes to Nebula, when we first launched Nebula, for those of you that are old timers, we did it the Cisco Meraki way, where we had hardware that was for traditional management and hardware that was for cloud management. That is something we have gotten away from, and now pretty much everything we're doing with Nebula is what we call Nebula Flex. So the Nebula Flex, or the Flex part of Nebula, just means that you can manage it in the Nebula cloud if you want to, or you can manage it the traditional standalone way. So hardware labeled as Nebula Flex operates in either mode. So it's up to you whether you want to do cloud management or standalone. So that way you can standardize on certain hardware, even if not all of your customers are going to be able to use the Nebula cloud for whatever reason. So it's really easy. Out of the box, your hardware is going to be in standalone mode. If you would like to manage it in Nebula, you simply scan in that QR code, or you go in and you manually add the MAC and serial number of the device in the Nebula cloud, assign it to one of your customers, and then the device itself will automatically see that you now want to manage that device in the cloud and will reboot in the cloud mode. If at any point you decide you no longer want to manage it in the cloud, you simply remove it from the Nebula cloud and it will automatically reboot in the standalone mode. Now, a key thing here to keep in mind is that the configurations are completely independent between modes. So when you put it in the cloud mode, it will download the configuration from the cloud. When you put it back to standalone mode, it will factory default itself and you will need to manually configure the device. Another thing to keep in mind is by default, if you have access to the device and access to that QR code, you can scan the device and assign it to a new site. So it's something that's there to make it easy for you to be able to move hardware between customers. This was a feature request we got a lot of requests for from some of our larger MSP customers, because when a customer complains about a certain piece of hardware maybe not acting right, instead of troubleshooting it on site, they would simply swap in another piece of hardware, take the old hardware back to the lab to troubleshoot it to see if it was a hardware issue, and if not, they reuse that hardware. If you don't want to do that, you simply log into Nebula and you lock that device so it cannot be reassigned without logging into Nebula and unlocking that device. So when it comes to our hardware, just about everything these days supports Nebula. This top row up here is products that are Nebula Flex. The bottom row down here is what we call Nebula Flex Pro. So all the Pro needs for the most part is that that device comes bundled with 1 year of our Pro Pack license. So if you're planning to use Pro Pack, you may want to buy a device that comes with Pro Pack already bundled with it, but you can always add Pro Pack to these other devices as a separate license should you want to. Now, one thing to highlight here, on the APs, Pro Pack also unlocks local management. So if you don't want to use the Nebula Cloud, and you do want to use a local controller to manage your wireless network, you still need to buy products that are Nebula Flex Pro. The regular Nebula Flex APs do not support local controller. So now we'll start talking about the licensing for you. So there's basically 3 levels of licensing when it comes to the devices in the feature set. There is the base pack, which is the free version we've been talking about today. There is Pro Pack, which is what comes bundled with some of those Nebula Flex Pro devices, which is primarily aimed at those of you that are MSPs and unlocks a lot of additional features that we will talk about. And then Plus Pack is sort of an in-between level there that's aimed more at the like Netgear's cloud, some of the other SMB clouds. The main features it unlocks for you is a little bit more logs stored in the cloud, and the ability to get push notifications for your customers. And again, we will talk about that. Now, to convert your customer from the free version of Nebula to the paid version of Nebula, every device in their organization needs to have a valid Plus or Pro license. So until every device has a license assigned to it, your organization will stay in the free mode. Once you've added licenses for all of your devices, it will convert that organization over to the Plus or Pro, depending on the license you used. Now, when those licenses start to expire, we will send you emails warning you, hey, these licenses are coming up. These are going to be expiring soon. Once they do expire, we email you again letting you know, hey, these have expired. And we give you a 15-day grace period between when they expire and when we drop your organization back to the free version of Nebula. So again, every device has to have a valid active license or else you stay in free. If licenses start expiring and you don't renew them before that grace period is over, your organization drops back to the free version of Nebula until you add the licenses in for all the devices. So some of the features that are covered as part of Nebula Pro Pack: machine learning for your wireless network. So we have the ability to basically monitor the quality of connectivity of the client devices on your network. And if you grant us permission to, we will automatically, using machine learning, tweak some of your Wi-Fi settings to automatically try to adjust to improve the quality of life for those connected users. If you're doing IPTV streaming over your switches, Pro Pack unlocks some additional IGMP snooping features that you can configure. It also uses machine learning to monitor those video streams and give you alerts to any issues we see with those streams, and to suggest to you configuration changes that may solve those issues. When it comes to troubleshooting, we create a network topology view for you that will let you see which devices are connected to which other devices. So again, it might be a handy tool if you're troubleshooting something to know which devices are upstream of which other devices, so you can trace that problem back until you find where the issue actually is. Now, we also have another type of license called an MSP license. So this license is different than the Plus and Pro licenses in that instead of being a license you have to buy for each device on your network, this is a license you buy for an admin account, and it unlocks additional features for that admin account that applies to all of the organizations or all of the customers that that admin account is managing. So normally what you would have is you would have 1 or 2 or 3 people at your business would have the MSP license to get access to these features. So some of the features it provides for you is it provides what we call the MSP view, which basically gives you a snapshot of all your customers. It gives you a quick, easy way to keep an eye on what's going on with your customers, how many sites they have, how many devices are online, how many devices are offline, which customers are using the free version of Nebula, which users are using Pro, which are using Plus, any organizations that are going to be expiring soon, things like that. So it gives you a view of that. It also gives you the ability to set up teams. So if you've got a large team of admins, rather than manually adding and removing admins to each individual customer or site, you can add them to teams and then just control based on the team who has access to what additional information. It also unlocks the ability to remove the Zyxel branding and add your branding to the GUI interface in Nebula. So if you're allowing your customers to manage their devices themselves, or at least to look at what's going on, you will see your branding when they log in. And it gives you push notifications for every organization that you are managing, even the free ones. So now we'll go through the feature list here. What's the difference between the base pack, plus pack, and pro pack? So as you see here, all of them have access to centralized single pane of glass management of all your hardware, gives you access to the dashboard, the Google Maps integration, the ability to load in your own floor plans into Nebula. It gives you that zero-touch auto provisioning of the hardware. All versions give you access to firmware management and scheduling through the cloud. All versions give you access to our iOS and Android apps for managing your site. Now, one area here where we're going to start seeing some differences is when it comes to log information. The free version of Nebula will store 24 hours worth of logs in the cloud. Plus Pack will store a week of logs in the cloud, and Pro Pack will store a year's worth of logs in the cloud. Now with Nebula, we do still support the standard syslog. So if you need more than 24 hours of logs, you can always set up your own syslog server and have the free version of Nebula export the logs to that syslog server for you. Another area where there are some differences here is when it comes to the number of admin accounts per organization. So each of your customers with the free version of Nebula can have up to 5 different admin accounts. Plus Pack gives you up to 8 admin accounts, and then Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of admin accounts per organization. Now we also run a cloud-hosted authentication server for doing like 802.1x authentication, MAC filtering, guest access. So the free version of Nebula gives you 50 entries into that database. Plus Pack gives you 100 entries into that database. And the Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of entries into that database. And again, this is only if you are using our cloud-hosted authentication server. If you've set up your own Radius server to use, these limits don't apply to your Radius server. All of them give you access to all of the standard features in your different products. So all the core functionality and settings are available on all 3 modes here. MAC filtering and 801x authentication are available in all versions. Captive portal with authentications available in all 3 versions here. So now we'll start getting into some of the changes here that are only available in Plus and Pro Pack. So advanced firmware scheduling does require one new license. So the freeware version, you can say, hey, I want to do my firmware updates on Mondays at 2 a.m. With Plus and Pro Pack, you can go in there and set up different rules based on the type of hardware. You can create individual schedules for individual pieces of hardware. So a lot more flexible with the Plus and Pro Pack. Advanced reporting features, including the ability to automatically generate and email out reports with your branding on them, requires Plus or Pro Pack. That automatic topology view requires Plus or Pro Pack. Email alerts requires Plus or Pro Pack unless you're using the MSP license. And then if you're doing Wi-Fi vouchers, that requires Plus or Pro Pack. And then the rest of the features here are all exclusive to the Pro Pack. And this chart that I've got up here, This is available online on our website. I think if you just Google, Nebula ProPack features, it'll get you a PDF with all this information in here. Some of the other stuff you get with ProPack that you don't get with the other two ones is an audit log. So we'll keep track of configuration changes and when they were made. So again, it may be a nice tool when you're troubleshooting something, has that feature been set that way for a month, or did that just changed recently, that sort of thing. The ability to clone, use templates and sync configurations between sites in an organization, that requires ProPack. The ability to back up and restore configurations, that's a ProPack feature. The ability to open a ticket directly with our headquarters through the web interface, that's a ProPack feature. Advanced AAA features, that requires ProPack. Some of the advanced Wi-Fi settings, that requires ProPack. We talked about here, the machine learning for automatically adjusting things, that requires ProPack. On the switch side of things, it unlocks some additional features, such as the IGMP advanced setting that you can tweak and change. On our 1350 series switches, in order to use some of those advanced IPTV features, that does require the ProPack. Doing packet captures remotely through the USG Flex, that requires ProPack. So those are the main differences between the three modes. As you can see, the free version of Nebula gives you access to all the core features, and most of our customers are using that. But if you are an MSP or you're providing some more proactive management of your customer sites, the ProPack may be something to consider. Price-wise, you can get a year worth of ProPack for a device for considerably cheaper than any of our business competition there, like Cisco, Meraki, Ruckus, etc. So just to highlight here again, the MSP license pack is based on an account. So the account that you assign the license to gets access to those features, and only that account. So we'll talk briefly about some additional licenses that aren't really tied to Nebula, but you will see them when you go into the license management part of the Nebula interface. So let's talk about them. We have what's called Connect and Protect. This is a license for our access points. It works with Nebula, it works without Nebula. And what it does is it provides UTM light features in the access point itself. So this is a license you can buy to unlock some additional security for your access point. So this is primarily used by those of you that are managing your customers' wireless networks. They've already got a gateway that comes from their ISP. They don't want to replace it. You don't want to add a UTM gateway behind it, but they do want some extra security. So you can apply that security to your wireless network, regardless of what's going on at the gateway. So I did want to talk about that. And then I just want to talk a little bit about how Nebula is architected, because we do get a lot of questions on this. So the first thing here is, where is our cloud hosted? Our cloud is hosted with Amazon AWS, and it is a distributed cloud. So different parts of our cloud infrastructure are distributed at different access points in the AWS cloud, with the idea being, if AWS has some sort of issue with one of their nodes, hopefully the other nodes are able to take over, smoothing that out. So because of that, we offer a 4.9 uptime SLA. If you are an international organization, certain countries have different rules as to where stuff may be hosted. So depending on the country you're in, those servers may be located in that country or not. I know EU has certain rules about that. So I think we've got certain things hosted in certain places in the EU to comply with their regulations. I think UK has their own rules. So we've had to set up stuff just in the UK for those customers. But we are a global company. We do deploy this throughout the globe. So in general, wherever you are is going to determine exactly where in the Amazon cloud stuff is hosted. So because of that, though, there's unlimited throughput. There's no bottlenecks. You can scale as much as you need to. You don't have to pay anything extra to add additional devices or nodes. We will automatically scale up based on the size of the network you are supporting. So when it comes to the Nebula cloud, we get a lot of questions about security and privacy. So our cloud itself The only thing that goes, the only data that goes between the cloud and your devices is the configuration information and the regular log type information. None of your customers' traffic, none of your customers' data is touching our network. So anything that's supposed to stay on the local network stays on the local network. Anything that's supposed to go out to the internet goes directly out to the internet. It does not get funneled through our cloud. So because of that, there's no problem with using Nebula for HIPAA situations. There's no problems using it for PCI applications. For those of you that also deploy in Europe, we are GDPR compliant when it comes to our Nebula cloud. We get asked about the security. Well, how do I know, the communication between your devices and the cloud is secure? So rather than try to design something in-house like some of our competitors have done, we use an industry standard called NetConf. So all of our communication between the cloud and our devices uses the NetConf standard to make sure everything is properly encrypted and everything is as tough as possible when it comes to intrusion or attacks aimed at the network itself. So that's how the Nebula cloud works for you. So just to highlight here sort of the key things here for you, it's easy to use Nebula. At any point, you can log into that Nebula cloud and start setting up customers and playing around with it. We do have a live demo there you can go to, or you can set up your own live site and start playing with it, even if you don't have any Nebula hardware, although obviously having a few pieces of hardware will make things a little bit easier. We've optimized things to make it as simple as possible. So a lot of the things that go into setting up a network become a lot simpler when it comes to using our cloud-based solution. We have a number of different tools in there to help automate things. If you're using ProPack or MSP Pack, we make it easy for you to clone existing customers to start as a basis for new customers to get you up and running quick. Basically, unlimited scalability, super reliability, very affordable, being free. So that is Nebula. So again, you just go to nebula.zyxel.com to play with it. There is a button there to take you to a live demo. You can do that. If you are one of our partners, you can reach out to your salesperson here, Andy, Jacob, or David, and ask them for a 60-day demo kit. We can send you to play around with it if you haven't already. And then lastly, just to highlight here for you, most of our webinars are recorded and we do upload them to our YouTube page. So if you had to step out or you've missed some of our webinars that you would have liked to have attended, we are on YouTube as Zyxel America channel. Because we are a global company, there are a number of different Zyxel channels on YouTube. So Zyxel America channel is for us here in North America. In addition to webinars, we have video case studies, we have best practices guides, new product introductions, etc. And with that, that concludes today's webinar. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them in using the question and answer interface. At the moment, I do not have any questions pending from you guys. So I'll stick around here, but while we wait, thank you for attending today. We do webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so feel free to join one of those webinars. Tuesdays are generally a little bit more technology focused, a little bit more in depth, and Thursday webinars are generally more of a salesy overview type presentations. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. If you did have a question, you can reach out to me directly or reach out to your salesperson and they can get you the answers to those questions. Thank you for joining us today.